Stars win games, but depth wins seasons. And that's exactly where Cade Bennerman comes in.
This is David Noel, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. This episode is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. Joining me on the show today, our good buddy, Mr. Jonathan Adams from the Point to the Passer pod. Make sure you're following. You even got a finger point from Jay for those of you watching on YouTube. Make sure you're following along with all the great work over there at Point to the Passer. Jay and I have been rolling along here through the summer doing our player preview series, and that's what we're here to do again today. Let me rattle off the guys we've already hit. The whole freshman class: Maximo Adams, Sayon Keita, who is finally in Chapel Hill, Malloy Smith, Kevin Thomas. Now we are too deep into the sophomores: Matt Able and Neo Avdalas. If you want to check any of that out, I'm going to link the playlist for it. Yeah, we got a whole playlist for it up on the top on YouTube. Today, we move into a sophomore who's not played a minute of college basketball yet. We'll explain how that works. And that's a man by the name of Cade Bennerman. So Jonathan and I are going to be going through later in the show, 3 things to be working on this offseason, bold predictions, over, under, and more. Before that, though, we got to talk scouting report. What can we expect from Cade Bennerman? But first, major storylines, the Bio Blast. Adams is going to hit it for us. Bio Blast us, sir.
Thanks, Isaac. Always great to be on and excited to talk Cade Bennerman today. Cade Bennerman is from Nashville, Tennessee. Went to high school at Father Ryan High School, where he led Father Ryan to the most wins that they'd had since 2009. They had 21 wins in his senior season, so very successful career there. He, like you said, he's technically going to be a sophomore, would be a redshirt freshman under the old rules, but we're in that new era of college basketball and college athletics where 5 and 5, you just play the 5 years in 5. So he'll be a sophomore this coming season. He's a center, wore number 35 at Northwestern last year, 7-footer listed height on Northwestern's roster, 7'5", wingspan, +5 wingspan, which we'll get into a little bit more as we go into the scouting report. Weight 205, definitely needs to continue to build strength in that area. And then Twitter, Cade Bennerman is his Twitter handle is Cade Bennerman. Instagram is Cade Bennerman _. TikTok is Cade Bennerman 791, rounding out his social media presence.
Okay, Jay, what do we got here? 1 to 10 social media rating. He's got a unique enough, like Cade, I feel like has picked up some momentum. I haven't checked out the IRS website for rankings of popularity, but I feel like Bannerman is such a unique last name. I feel like maybe he could play with it a little bit, have some fun. But as we've said a lot of times, when you've got a unique name, you can just rock with Cade Bennerman. So where are you at 1 to 10?
No, I'm with you on all that. I think it's unique enough that that's solid. So I'll give him a 7 for just rolling with the name, keeping that pretty consistent. I was telling you before, one of the cool things about Cade, if you look up on YouTube, he's got a lot of old videos from earlier in his life, like all the way back to elementary and middle school, playing basketball. And one of the games that I saw just at the beginning, he was introduced as Cade Iceman Bennerman. I am all in on that nickname as a Top Gun fan. Incredible. One of my favorite movies. So if there's a way to work that in there, I don't know if that's a current nickname for him. Yes. But I like the creativity as we've talked about. So maybe work something else in there, but still strong as a 7. Consistent, easy to search. That's all good stuff.
Yeah, I like it. I'm here for it. All right, Jonathan, we still don't have the Carolina full roster out. And part of the reason I say that is because Carolina usually puts players' full names on there and we can access their middle name. We don't have that from Cade Bennerman yet because Northwestern's weak sauce, whatever, fine. Let's make a guess, though. I'm going to say I'm looking at this picture from Northwestern last year. I'm going to go with Allen, Cade Allen Bennerman, and that also gives him the initials CAB. I'm here for that.
I like Cab a lot. I don't know why he gives me Michael as a middle name, so that's what I'm going with.
I like it, Cade Michael. And I got to be, look, I got my hair pulled back today but I think I could throw my hair out and really compete with Cade. I don't have the style hair, you know, that works for a fro, but like this stuff is long, man. I could compete.
As my brother likes to say, especially when we talk about baseball, that is some serious flow, Isaac. You've definitely got some good volume, some good flow. So I think you're in good competition there.
Take that, Cade, Allen, or Michael Bennerman. I can't wait to find out what his middle name actually is. All right, Jonathan, trick question, or not question, but trick statement. Give us his stats from last year at Northwestern.
Yeah, his stats from last year at Northwestern, I'll go even a level further. So he scored 3 points in one exhibition game, 0 points in the regular season, did not appear last year for Northwestern, ended up redshirting the full season.
All right, fine. You got around it with the technical. I don't know if that's a technicality, but whatever. Yeah. Cade redshirted. And so that's why Jonathan earlier said, hey, under the old rules, he redshirted last year and would have 4 years of eligibility. But now, like, we're not making those provisos. So he's just got 5 years. So now instead of redshirt sophomore, he's a freshman. But Jonathan, you did the yeoman's Lord's work and went and found his high school stats. So let's go with that.
Let's do it. So senior year at Father Ryan, he scored 13.6 a game, 4.5 rebounds, 1.5 blocks. And like we said before, that was the most successful year for Father Ryan since 2009, 21-win season. So definitely was the leader of that team. He also was All-State and a nominee for Tennessee Mr. Basketball. So really had a successful senior season.
Let's talk some storylines about Cade Bennerman. Jonathan, what was it that caused him not to play more than what happened in the exhibition game? Was it a lack of skill, an injury? What was going on there with Cade that he didn't really step on the floor for the Wildcats last year?
Yeah, so I might actually ask that back to you because I think if I'm right, he got sick during the fall semester.
To the best of my knowledge, yes. And then it just, like, we all know how hard it is to kind of ramp back up out of that. And so there might be other reasons. And we have kind of like through the circles of separation or whatever, some connectivity to Cade's family. And I know Coach Rob had his little brother at camp this summer. And so we might be able to suss that out some more. But as you and I talked today, to the best of my knowledge, that's what's going on there.
And so that definitely impacted his reason for redshirting. So that is part of what happened there. Northwestern had a pretty thin front court last season. I think it was expected that he would at least have a chance to be in the rotation, but does end up redshirting last year, and do think that illness played a part in that. So he really is going to be coming into Carolina this year with a fresh slate, having not played live action games going back to his senior season at Father Ryan.
Yes. I'm also looking in real time to see if I can find anything else out about Cade. I'll keep looking as we're talking, but okay, you said it, but as with the entirety of the rest of Carolina's front line, outside of now Cameron Fens, Cade is another one of these guys that's real little string bean kind of guy. Some people's frames can add weight, some can't. Do I remember correctly? Had a pretty big growth spurt as he was in high school that maybe kind of contributes to this, correct?
He did. So he grew 5 inches in high school. That was leading up to his sophomore season in high school. He actually stood out at the Pangos All West freshman sophomore camp in 2022 and got featured by 247 for being a standout at that event. That 5-inch growth spurt. So he went from 6'4" to 6'9". Very similar. This would be probably the one, or maybe one other area I would compare him to John Henson. I'm not going to go there as a player, but in terms of that growth spurt, Henson also had a huge growth spurt in high school, going from 6'4" to 6'10". And both those guys, you can see the impact of that, going from being more of a wing or guard. They have those guard skills that they carried with them even when they got to their final height.
Man. And so with Bannerman, you know, I think the thing, like, coming out of high school, more of like a 3-star kind of level player. But when you have this size, when you have some of those guard skills, he projects to me. I feel like I said this last year on Isaiah Denis's player preview, which, spoiler alert, he's next week, by the way, in our roster preview series. I think I said Isaiah Denis is the kind of guy that if he'll stick around at North Carolina and really keep pushing and working, is really somebody that could develop into something as a college basketball player. And I feel like that's what I've been feeling about Cade Bennerman, is that he's very much in that same vein where it's like, especially given the addition of Fens now and with Keita now on campus, I think Cade is probably, third or fourth on that center depth chart, but that doesn't mean he's not an integral part of this roster. That doesn't mean he's not somebody that won't see any time. And it doesn't mean that he's not somebody that could, in a year or two, develop into a critical part of Carolina's actual in-game rotation.
That's right. Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see how quickly he can catch up from not playing games, not having on-court experience last season. So to me, that is the biggest question, is how does he adapt to the college game for the first time, playing with the lights on? But he is a big-time upside player. Chris Collins, he is a Dookie, but now at Northwestern as the head coach there, talked about Cade when he committed, just about that upside, that his length, his athleticism, he has really good skill, good hands and feet as well, and he can run the floor. And you see that in some of the tape, especially even from the full games that you can watch of Cade. You have to go back to 2024 in his AAU games with the 3SSB circuit, but you see some of that ability to run end to end, to be pretty fluid, and then even handle a little bit in transition.
Well, there could be some things there. So I'm really curious, especially since we didn't get to see him at Northwestern last year. There's so much unknown right now. And so it's going to be very much relying on what we're hearing from people. And also hopefully we'll get to see him. Carolina has these exhibition games. We'll see if they have the blue and white, and we'll see what comes up there. So Jay, that means since there's no tape, we really need to help the people with a scouting report here. And that's exactly what we're going to do next. Strengths and weaknesses as we see them right now for Cade Bennerman. All that coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time, there's more live events than ever we're seeing right now. You got games and concerts, comedy shows, festivals. Football is almost back. The hard part's not deciding what you want to attend. It's usually actually getting tickets to it. You got long wait times, confusing processes at checkout, surprise fees. And with all of that, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it actually should. That's why so many people, yours truly included, are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you have to buy, exclusive saving opportunities, all that to help you get to the events you want without all that usual hassle. My biggest pet peeve, when I think I found a great deal on a third-party ticket website, and it's like, man, look at this. And then 82 convenience fees later, suddenly it's a terrible deal. I don't want that. And that final price now looks like, that's gross. Game Time changes that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, download that Game Time app today. Thanks for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jonathan Adams and I are here talking Cade Bennerman with you today. We'd love for you to check out the Everydayer Club that gets you ad-free audio versions of the show and free access to all of my Google Drive folder for the Tar Heels stats, charts, data, record books, and more. Jonathan Adams, scouting report time. Let's go strengths first. What you got?
The first thing that stands out right away is just how tall Cade is. He is a legit 7 feet. And we talked about that wingspan, 7'5", +5 wingspan. That really just jumps out on the film.
Yes.
And again, going back to really was 2024, that summer of his junior season with Game Elite on the 3SSB circuit with Adidas, that I was able to watch a couple full games of him, and you see his ability to alter and block shots with that length, both in drop coverage, but also he showed decent ability to get out and get in switches and stay, keep smaller guards in front of him, which I was pretty impressed with. But that length is really something that's just disruptive on defense. And then he's also able to be a rim finisher, lobs, but also just running to the rim and using that length to be able to just go over guys.
And I think part of what you said there with that defensive switchability, as you think back to that growth spurt you talked about, I remember this was a huge storyline with Anthony Davis at Kentucky, where it was like, part of the reason he's so good with his feet and ball skills is he used to be a guard and he just boom, sprouted. And obviously right now, Cade is not at the level Anthony Davis was. He's not going to be the national player of the year as a freshman because he already had his freshman season. But some of that translates where it's like, you look at so many of these big men in the NBA that get played off the court because they have zero defensive switchability and just don't have the foot speed to keep up with modern day fours and stuff like that. If Cade can do that, man, what a feather in his cap for what he could do for this Tar Heels team. And look, I know usually when we're talking strengths and weaknesses here, we're talking about the game. But Jay, I think something that Cade truly will add to this team is he just seems like a great dude. Always seems to have a smile on his face, always seems to be happy and going. And look, I know you can't help where you come from, but from all reports, from what Coach Rob has talked to me about, it just feels like the Bannerman family is just super cool, you know? And so I just think there's a lot there that matters, like even from a locker room and team chemistry standpoint, that cannot be overlooked.
That's really true. I always think back to James Brown, who's now going to be at Howard, but back to that Kansas game at Fog Allen in his freshman year and giving the locker room speech.
Call.
And even before that, was able to impact the game at the end of the first half. So, you know, I would not count out somebody who's earlier in their career like Cade to provide some leadership. But yeah, I watched a couple of interviews of him. I would just say the same thing, just very genuine, positive, but also somebody that you could see people just gravitating towards because he just seems like a quality person. And you do need that both on and off the court. So I think culture-wise, these are the types of guys that Malone seems to be targeting, right? Is the high character guys, obviously looking for the top skill guys on the court too, but that combination is something that Cade brings potential in both areas.
Somewhere Dean Smith is smiling, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, megawatt smile on Cade. I love it. The combo of his smile and his great hair and his height, like it just that's cool, man. I love it so much. All right. Let's switch to weaknesses, places that you see that Cade needs to be able to grow.
Yeah, so, I mean, offensively, it was interesting. And it's hard to tell because in these AAU games, how much is he being asked to do offensively? Primarily, he did show some nice touch around the rim on put-backs and dump-offs, finishing with a lot of slams in the paint. But passivity on offense was something that really showed up. He just wasn't that active, primarily set up in the dunker spot, usually on the left side of the court there. And he was effective because, again, you had guards get in the lane. Caleb Holt actually played on his AAU team.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
Is now at Arizona, top 5
He's a
overall
dude.
prospect. He's an absolute dude. And so you have him getting in the lane and feeding you. So that helped. But he really didn't post up. He really didn't call for the ball. There wasn't a whole lot of variety in what they asked him to do offensively. And he sometimes just sort of faded into the background. And so I'd like to see him be more active on offense, both in terms of his role. I would expect him to be more involved in some ball screens. So it'd be interesting to see more of that from him, but also offensive rebounding. Love to see him be even more aggressive on the offensive glass.
I thought you had a great note in because one of the things we do, we always create like basically a show outline with some scripted stuff, but I always put in there like strengths, weaknesses, and TBDs, like things we aren't sure of. And Jonathan, I really loved your note about basically like, because of not getting to see him really at Northwestern last year, so much of this about Cade is speculation, right? Like we have to go back and rely on high school and AAU stuff. And so like, that's the intriguing thing is a lot of what we're saying is projection and scientific hyperbole, or not hyperbole. What's the word I'm looking for? Extrapolation of what he might be now. And there's just no way, like Cade could come out and get very legitimate minutes for this team. We'll talk role and expectations in the next segment, but I love your point there that so much of the TBD is everything because we just don't have much recent basketball to go on.
We don't. So it really is hard to know. And I think, the caveat for all of my points on his strengths and weaknesses is primarily that's from 2024, that summer. So it's possible that his development has taken off in some of those areas. I think the other piece is, what's his identity on the court going to be? Offensively, especially. I think that's going to be really interesting. And that's going to be part of what he's going to be figuring out, both for himself as a player, but also how does it mesh with what Michael Malone wants to do with his big guys. So that'll be really interesting because he still has those guard skills. You see him push the ball up the court. There are more than a handful of plays where he either gets a rebound or gets a block and collects the rebound and then goes coast to coast and finishes. And you don't see guys typically see 7-footers do that. And he's pretty fluid doing it. I wouldn't necessarily expect him to do that this season, but again, where does he go with this? How far can he take it with some of the guard skills and even the shooting and the touch eventually too? So that identity is going to be interesting. Is he more of a face-up player? Does he get in with Sean May and really work on his post game? That's all really to be part of his development here in this fall, going into his first season at Carolina.
Yep. And obviously there's the Jonas factor, which I know we're going to get to here in a minute. You mentioned, what does Michael Malone have for him? That's a great question, because coming up in a minute, what would Michael Malone give to Cade Bennerman as 3 things to be working on this offseason? Plus, bold predictions, over, under, and more coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Kalshi. Look, before the season even kicks off, everyone's out here making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting up the trophy at season's end? Well, on Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. At Kalshi, they've already got win totals for this Carolina basketball team. It's really simple to do. They've got like 5 different levels of wins, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, or more than that, right? And you just pick yes or no. Do you think Carolina will win 18 or more games? If you think yes, then click yes. If you think no, then go no. Whatever it is, you got the option to get in on things like that. So many things you can check out over at Kalshi, where you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your positions. So trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the app and use code LOCKEDON to get up to $500 in bonus credits when you trade 25. Kalshi, Kalshi, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Oh, hey there, Michael Malone. I don't know where Jonathan Adams went and you came in, but here's what I'd love to ask you, sir. A, what does it feel like to win an NBA championship? But B, if you were talking to Cade Bennerman and gave him 3 things to be working on this offseason, what would it be for him?
Yeah, Isaac, the championship was fine, but we had more work to do. So I just went right back in the lab, and there's no days off here. Love Michael Malone. He actually just went on with John Rothstein as well.
I haven't watched it yet. Did you watch it yet?
I haven't had a chance to watch it, but saw some quotes. One of them was, this is paraphrasing, but essentially he doesn't play golf because he works. And that just captures everything about this guy. He is obsessed with basketball, and we love that.
And earlier I said somewhere Dean Smith is smiling, somewhere Roy Williams is livid at Michael Malone. How dare you backstab me in golf?
Look, I feel like if anybody can get Michael Malone on the golf course, it is Roy. So I imagine that's going to happen at some point, and maybe they can get some work done while they're out there and get a good balance. But
I love it.
So as Michael Malone, the first thing is really looking at that activity on the offensive end, because like we mentioned in AAU especially, he was not asked to do a lot offensively. So he's going to really have to embrace the fundamentals of Malone's system. We still don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but he's going to need to be able to soak all of that in. So I want him to be a really good screener. We're going to need him to set sound physical screens, but then also rebounding is going to be really, really key. So he's got to be strong on the defensive boards, but also offensively being able to get loose balls and finish. He already shows some really good touch there. Let's keep with that and be a little bit more physical.
Yeah.
Number 2, as part of that, really expanding there, get with Sean May. Look, Sean has done a great job with some of these big guys over the last few years. You just go back to Henry Vasar even last season and see the change in terms of his rebounding numbers, but also his overall physicality. It really changed. And I think Sean should get a good amount of credit for that in working with the big guys. Get in the lab with Sean. Don't wait, right now, early fall semester. He's already been doing this, but continue to develop as a big guy and work on that post game. Let's see how far you can take that. Work on your positioning. Again, embrace physicality. That would be the theme I would just keep coming back to is he's going to need to get more physical, get stronger, but also be physical in the paint. And then boxing out. Didn't see a ton of clean box outs necessarily in terms of technique on film. Again, AAU basketball can be a little bit different that way, but want him to embrace those fundamentals, do all of those things at the highest level, because that's the type of stuff that's going to set a developmental prospect apart.
Yeah.
Last one is the weight room. I mean, that could be number 1, 2, and 3 is build functional strength because, like you said, Isaac, very lean, just over 200 pounds. That was leaner than John Henson coming into UNC. John was at 210 his freshman year, going into his freshman year. We're talking now sophomore year for Cade at 205. We'll see where they list him when the season we get closer, but he's got to put on that strength because right now I think it's a real question of how can he compete with some of these physical big guys in the ACC. I'm not so sure. I don't know that he's ready for that yet, but that's the part that's intriguing is we just don't really know until we see him out there.
That said, I have battled myself with this all off season, Jay. When I look at Cade Bennerman, like if I see a picture of his shoulders at like a headshot, it looks like somebody that weighs like 230. And I say that to say, I don't think his frame is one of these weird frames that can't add. It looks like a frame that could support a lot more weight. And it just isn't there yet, right? Like it just, my eyes decide, like I'm looking at pictures of him right now. I'm like, there's no way that dude only weighs 205. And so I see that as a good thing. Like that dude has to weigh 230. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I think like keep grinding, keep growing, but I'm really curious to see what the possibilities are there. Okay, let's look at, I think we've kind of alluded to where we kind of think his role is, probably behind both whatever order they're going to come in, Sayon Keita and Cameron Fens at the 5, probably is the third center in the depth rotation. And like, it's just hard to know because there's so many pieces on this team. There really aren't that many like walk-on level guys. Like it's a lot of like scholarship level players filling out this roster. And so Jay, as you look at the floor and ceiling for Cade's role, what do you see?
Yeah, the floor would be, I don't know that they call it blue steel anymore, but it would be that last group and coming into games that are the score's already decided. And an opportunity for him to get some time, right? Be on the court, develop that way during live action, but not as somebody who's going to factor into the rotation or even as a depth piece. That would be the floor. Ceiling would be a little bit above that. I'm not going to go all the way into the rotation, but it's limited minutes when games are still in doubt.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit more than what Isaiah Denis saw last year, right? Because he only was it one ACC game against Wake Forest that he got in during the middle of the game there in the first half. So I'd like to see ceiling get a little bit more time than that, spot minutes, maybe when other bigs are in foul trouble. We've seen guys like Justin McCoy a few years ago have to play spot minutes to even significant minutes when Armando Bacot was in foul trouble. Yeah. And with the inexperience of some of these other guys, Keita especially, foul trouble could be an issue. So that could be something that if he's ready and hits that ceiling, he could get more time there to help out the other guys along the way.
You make great points there. Yeah, because part of it is this front court feels deeper than that front court where you suddenly had to see like was it the Virginia game or something where they just trying to piece anything together a couple years ago, and suddenly you saw Jalen Washington have to play like 20 minutes out of nowhere or something like that. I feel like that's sticking in my brain somewhere, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And interestingly, if we can go to our bold predictions, I think that kind of leads in to what we probably both have for our bold predictions. I don't remember whose week it is to go first. Do you remember, Jay?
I've lost track. I think I'll have you go first. I think it was me last week.
Okay.
But
so my bold prediction, and as a reminder, bold predictions are not expected to happen. This is something that probably, and it goes right with what you said about probably not getting a ton of run in big ACC games. But my bold prediction is that Cade Bennerman is going to have at least one ACC game this year where he plays 15 minutes, has 6 points, like 2 putbacks and a lob dunk or something like that, 5 rebounds and 2 blocks. And it's like like not the leader of the game, but stats that matter in helping Carolina win. That's my bold prediction for Cade Bennerman. What about you?
that would be huge if that happens. I went a little conservative, but I still think this would make an impact where back to that James Brown game, you think Allen Fieldhouse, he comes in at the end of the first half where Carolina's down big and makes some plays, gets a bucket to cut the lead back there. I'd like to see a sequence like that. And I'm thinking Kentucky at the Garden. If you can get in there and show something against somebody like Malachi Moreno with the Wildcats, some of their big guys, Milan Momcilovic in there as well at the 3 or the 4. If you can show something there in a sequence like James Brown had at Kansas, that would, to me, be big time.
All right. It's time for over under. This is always so stressful for me because I always want to set whatever the thing is at a level where it's going to make you think and work at it. So here's the number I'm going with. I hope it makes you think. Over under 5.5 minutes per game for the season.
Man.
Is that a good enough line to make you think?
And I'm pausing for sure. I did have to take a moment. I am going to go
for behind the scenes for everybody. I don't tell Jonathan these beforehand because I want to make him actually process it in real time.
Yeah, I'm going to go under. I'm as much as there's been buzz about Cade in the offseason and the staff has been really pleased with what they've seen, I still think it's going to take some time. So I'm going to go under. I just feel like there's too many other guys ahead of him. You mentioned Keita, Fens. You throw Samodurov in there and even Stevenson. I'd say all 4 of those guys for me would play 5 minutes ahead of Bannerman right now. So I'm going to go under.
Yep. That's where I'm at as well. The case for over, though, if we were making it, he's a legit 7-footer, as you said earlier, who provides rim protection, some switchability and athleticism defensively. Maybe, like, depending on how things are going at the 2, the 3, the 4, maybe rather than asking Samodurov and Jarin to slide up from the 4, you would want more of a true center at 5 so that Jarin can play the vast majority of his minutes at the 4, for example. And in that regard, maybe that's where Cade finds more run, is if you're wanting to just mostly keep the 5s as the 5s. And I think a lot of that is going to be predicated on what sort of lineup construction Coach Malone wants to go with. And I think in the same way we talked about the mystery of not knowing where Cade is at since he didn't play last year, we're at the mercy of that unknown with Coach Malone too, because we don't know who he is as a college basketball coach. We could try to rely on NBA lineups that he used, but who knows if he's going to treat it the same way. So I think all of that mystery makes it hard to answer. So that might be the argument for the over. I'm going under as well, Mr. Jonathan Adams. Anything else on Cade before we get out of here?
I mean, I think the last thing, it was really a storyline that had a moment. I don't know if it went viral, but it definitely had a moment with Michael Copeland being on with John Henson on 247 Sports on John Henson's podcast. And Copeland talked about Cade Bennerman as a young John Henson. That's what he saw in practice. I will need to see that because that is high praise. Henson was a top 10 5-star guy out of Sickles High School in Tampa, Florida. And, you know, the thing I think where the comparison gets interesting for me is the identity piece. Because I will never forget being at the Smith Center and seeing John Henson that freshman year out there on the perimeter playing the 3. And I think everybody collectively was thinking, what is happening here? This guy is 6'11", playing the 3, had the Ware brothers at the 4 and the 5. And he just never really found his rhythm until he went inside into that 4 spot and just took off from there. So that part, I think, I can see that part of it of back to that identity. What is Cade as a basketball player? Is he more of a stretch player, face-up player, or does he end up embracing that physicality, being able to put on that strength to his frame like you mentioned and play more in the paint?
Good wrap up. I absolutely love it. Jonathan, love doing these guys. As we said earlier, if you're not already following Point to the Passer Pod, go check it out right now. You can follow Jonathan on Twitter at Point Passer Pod, P cubed, whatever you want to say. Get after that. We referenced it earlier. Next week, Isaiah Denis. I'm very intrigued by that player preview because is his role going to move from last year? Because I think it should. And all the talk at the end of the year seemed like it should. Going to be a lot of fun. For that one, make sure you tune in. If you haven't already subscribed on video and audio, do it now so you don't miss a second. If you haven't joined the Locked on Tar Heels Discord, that link's down in the show notes, as is the link for the Every Dare Club I mentioned earlier. For now, though, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.